Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What's going on, everybody? Daniel and myself are back on Unofficial Steelers Podcast here for another week, possibly the last week of the Steelers season. It is possible. It might not be. We'll talk about it. But for any of you who are here, who are going to be tuning in, thank you guys for your support. Afton, hello. Thank you for always being in here. It's always good to see you. Daniel, how do you feel? Before we talk about it, do you think that this is going to be the last, or before you answer that, because we can answer that at the end of the show. But do you feel that there's a good possibility that this is the last episode for the regular season here for the Steelers?
Well, for the regular season, yeah. As far as will we have a playoff episode, I don't know yet, man. I think that the Steelers can do their part. I'm more concerned about the other teams doing their part. Kind of like last year when we needed, Flacco to come through with the Jets, and unfortunately he didn't, right? So, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be sitting a few people, including their quarterback, Lamar Jackson. So, the odds are probably in our favor, that the Steelers are going to go out there, playoff atmosphere for them, a division rival, playing, some new players or whatnot, a desperate team. I can see that the Steelers can go in there and take care of their own business.
Right.
Like I said, I'm more concerned about, Jacksonville and Tennessee, and mainly also concerned about Miami and Buffalo, given the fact that Miami has so many injuries.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing about it, is that the Steelers play Saturday night. So it will be all eyes on Sunday. It's been confirmed after that Lamar is not playing. Yes, that is confirmed 100%. That is reported, came out about a hour ago or so. So that is confirmed. But yeah, Daniel and I will talk about this game. We'll talk about some of the implications, how we think things are going to play out, and really just our ultimate predictions. But Daniel, really, as we sit here with the last week of the season, regular season at least, how do you ultimately feel about how the Steelers season has been? It's been up and down. It's been injury riddled, just like a lot of other teams in this league, and I don't think it's met a lot of expectations the way fans hoped this year, or certain things the fans expected. But what are your ultimate thoughts as you sit here with one more week to go on just really the entirety of the Steelers season? Just how you feel about it, what's kind of been disappointing, what hasn't been, what's kind of maybe some bright spots, just overall in general, can be any area, any aspect of it.
Yeah, for the most part, I think it's going to have to come down to the obviously to what happens this weekend for me. Pittsburgh Steelers win, they get 10 wins, and the other things happen, and the Steelers get in. I'm not one of these persons that say a team doesn't deserve to be there or whatnot. Unless it's like a situation that they had a couple of years back where I think it was the NFC West or something like that only had. Or South had somebody going into the playoffs with like a 7-9 record, that type of thing. Okay, I can say, all right, they don't deserve to win. The entire division is crap, right? But when it comes to like a team getting 10 wins in a season, regardless of how they got those wins, I think that those wins are deserved. I mean, the question is going to be asked, or the statements will be said that the Steelers didn't deserve this because their offense did this, or their defense, had to come through and intercept the ball at the end of the game. My
Right.
rebuttal is, did the other team deserve it more because they threw an interception at the end of the game?
Right.
Right. So with that being said, are there disappointments out of the season? Yeah, 100%. But I think that in the end now, I am way more optimistic about this team and their future, even if it ends this weekend, because I
Mhm.
think a problem has been identified. And now that it's been identified, something can be done.
Yeah.
Right. And that problem, which is probably going to be the conversation of today's, is the quarterback room.
Mhm.
Now, but before we go into that, if they end up getting into the playoffs, I think it'll be a successful season. Now, I think that they're going to need to win one also. And
Mhm.
obviously, I would like them to proceed further and further. I'm not sure they can, but again, are the Chiefs playing like great football right now? I don't
Right.
think so. Our Buffalo Bills playing great football right now. Miami's beat up.
Yeah.
You know, the toughest team that's in there are going to be the two teams that are in our division that the Steelers have already beaten this year, and that's going to be the Cleveland Browns and in my opinion, the Baltimore Ravens. So,
Mhm.
with that being said, if they get into the dance, I think they got a chance, and
Yeah.
I'm excited about it, man. I get like all the struggles and crap that happened earlier in the season, but those things have changed. Quarterback is gone. Is not gone. He's now number two.
Mhm.
I felt that the quarterback was a big part of the issue when it came down to what was going on offensively with this team.
Right.
And so now that they have a quarterback that, in my opinion, is playing about average to above average, well, elite, if you look at the other, stats across the NFL in the last 2 weeks, Mason Rudolph has had the highest rating as a quarterback in the NFL.
Mhm.
So, I think there's a lot to be happy about right now and a lot to be optimistic about,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I hear
If they
you.
end up making it in, one of the ways that they can make it in is they're going to be going up against Miami, and that's Miami beating Buffalo and possibly Buffalo, being knocked out of the playoffs altogether. And I think the Steelers can beat Miami. They've
Yeah.
handled their wide receivers before. Minka Fitzpatrick practiced today. DeMonte Casey will be back for the playoffs. I mean, who knows, man? I would be excited.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a unpredictable um yeah, Steeler freak he was. He was ever since really the start almost. Yes, he was. Um but
I wouldn't
this
say
is
that.
a what?
When it came to Pickett, the what happened to me was I think we went through like 4 or 5 games there, and it was just trash. Like it was
Right.
bad.
Right.
And then he kind of got better after the bye week last week or last year. Um, but I always was concerned about his first, half of the game play. It was always kind of down to the last drive,
Mhm.
type of story that continued on to this year. And, you know, as I thought he took a step forward, but once he took that step, I never saw another step being taken. And that's including this year. And
Right.
so that's when I was like, man, I'm not seeing improvement from this guy. And this
Mhm.
guy was supposed to be a guy that's coming in with a high floor, low ceiling, meaning he's probably not going to improve much more than what he is. And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that. I saw that last year. I saw this year. Can he get better over time? Can he be a situation where he turns into like a Mason Rudolph, where a few years down the line, he works on his craft, he calms down the feet problem, the escaping the pocket problem, and maybe trusts what he sees down the field. I don't know if he's going to get stronger or not, but maybe he can develop into something later. I just don't see the abilities there with him. And even last year, I thought that if Kenny Pickett was going to be a good quarterback in the NFL, he was going to have to do everything right because he didn't have that arm that he could throw off balance or weird
Right.
angles.
Right.
He really didn't have the speed, to be a guy that's going to be like a Lamar Jackson, or
Right.
the durability and the size.
Right.
Obviously, we've seen those things come to fruition. So, I thought that if he's going to be a good quarterback in this league, he was going to have to be a Peyton Manning type, Drew Brees, master of the game, and be confident with his throws and have to
Yeah.
be accurate with those anticipatory throws. And That's not who he is.
Steer Freak says his calculations with Pickett's current progress puts him ready for 2037.
Yeah. It could
Oh
be,
man, that's hilarious. Yeah, this is in reference to the Steelers making the playoffs and really getting a chance. This is a year of why I've told my friend Zach, as you guys have seen in the chat, that if the Ravens don't do anything, if the Ravens don't take advantage of how the AFC is, they might not ever win with Lamar. Let's be honest about that. But with the Steelers, in terms of them, it feels like that with the AFC, it's just a big pond of teams that probably could go head to head against each other. And it's unpredictable. And that doesn't mean that it's good football and that it's been good football from any of those teams, but that's the current state of it. And with the way the Steelers have played these last 2 weeks on offense, and they're going to get a couple guys back on defense, I think it makes a lot of people actually want to see them in the playoffs rather than 4 weeks ago, we were saying the opposite. So I actually am going to be on that train too. Yeah, the Bills are playing better. Yes, they are, Steelers Freak. Yes, they are. They are playing better. I'm going to be on that train as well with Daniel, that I actually would like to see this Mason Rudolph-led team get a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I would. It's been refreshing. It's actually been exciting these last 2 games, and there hasn't outside these last 2 games, it's hard to find a game that was actually fun for the Steelers and that you could actually sit and point out a lot of good that happened throughout that game. And these last 2, you've been able to do a lot of that. And so it's been refreshing. It's been fun. It's been exciting. And I think with just what we've seen, how things have been these last 2 games, why not? Like, why not? I think that would be actually something fun and interesting to see, because this feels like a different team than what we saw against the Patriots and the Cardinals and the Colts and stuff like that, and earlier on in the year. So it definitely makes it interesting, but sadly their fate's not in their hands. They kind of did that to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot throughout this year. They've battled injuries as well, but what team hasn't this season? So, and Daniel also makes a good point too, in terms of future wise, is that if the Steelers win 10 games, and if they get in the playoffs, even if they don't win, the heck was that?
What was what?
Was there not a noise?
Nah, well, I muted all my shit, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I
thought I heard
I didn't hear. I didn't hear you either. So.
Okay, Jared Devil, what's up, man? Okay, so yeah, so anyway, it's going to be a very fascinating offseason. There's going to be a lot of talk about things this offseason for them. But depending how they finish this year, it really could be a beneficial thing for their future, in the sense of looking at their offensive line play, looking at Dan's dog burped.
It could have been. I think my dogs are kind of nearby, but I don't think my dog burped. I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I thought I heard something, dude. I don't know. Steeler Freak might be on the same train. But yeah, it opens stuff up like that. You're seeing how they're running the football, man. You're seeing George Pickens, and 3 weeks ago, people were saying that there might be some offseason moves on him. That ain't happening. It's not happening. That's a dead story. That's dead and gone pretty much with that. And even in terms of, we know offensive coordinator, stuff like that, they have talent there for their future. There's some other aspects, some aging guys there as well, but they have a offseason cut out for them where there's going to be a lot of salary cut, and they can retool different areas and they can spend different areas. And if they can end the season on a good note, let's say they win 10 games, heck, even if they do miss the playoffs, I think that there's a lot of things to be optimistic about going in the offseason for them. But with that said, like, in terms of my opinion on how this season has gone for them, I expected things to be different, in the sense of kind of like what Daniel and I talked about earlier in the year. I didn't really think that we were going to see some of these really poor games from the Steelers team this year that we saw. Like, we've seen some pretty poor games. We saw the Texans game. We saw the Niners game to open up the season. We saw what other games, Daniel, were really bad that we saw this year? That there was at least a couple more that were actually really poor games. You look at the Patriots game. That's another one. You look at the a little bit of the Cardinals game. I mean, right there,
I mean,
those four.
there was some games that the Steelers won that they didn't look so great. You know, against the
Right.
Ravens,
Yeah,
they
there are
didn't
those
look
two.
very great.
Right.
You know,
Right.
against the
Ravens. Yep.
Browns, they don't look
Browns.
good. If it
Yep.
wasn't for the, you know, TJ Watt and stuff like that,
Right.
the Packers, offensively, they didn't look good. The defense, you know,
Yeah.
they came through on all those
Yeah.
games.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that there are some games out there that they didn't look so good, but
Yeah.
you know, if the other team, you know, can't put them away, you know, do they deserve the win? Nah,
Well, yeah,
Steelers
right.
does.
That's on them as well. Claude, happy New Year's, man. Welcome in,
Happy
Brian.
New Year.
Welcome into the show. Good to see you guys. Jared Devil again. What's up? But yeah, it's something where this season I expected them to just kind of be a competitive team in this division. I expected Kenny to do some things better than he did his rookie year. I knew there were still going to be problems with this offense, and we saw that a lot throughout the season. I expected our defense to be a lot better than what it was throughout the year. There have been some injuries. We know the linebacker's been injured. Minka's been in and out. Cornerback play's been poor for the most part. But still, this was a defense they spent a lot of money on, and a defense that throughout the season and the halfway point of the year before some of these injuries started kicking in to be a lot better, and they weren't. And we know there's coaching issues in multiple areas that are going to be reestablished this offseason. So I just kind of expected things to go a little bit in a different direction than what they did this year, but it's unpredictable in the NFL. I knew the AFC was not going to be nearly as good as what it was, because you know what's funny? I was actually Z and I recorded an episode where I'm going to upload it either today or tomorrow, and we were just talking about the MVP race and stuff like that. But I was talking about just the AFC and just how disappointing it's been, where a lot of people thought it was just going to be this slugfest. And people have to realize that it never works out that way. Like you look at the AFC coming to the season, right? Buffalo, the Jets, the Dolphins, there's a lot of hype around those teams. There was obviously, you have your Chiefs, you have Denver with Sean Payton. The Chargers are always overhyped, and with what Cleveland did, and Cincinnati, Baltimore, Steelers, um, Jacksonville. I mean, Daniel, right there, that's about 12 teams that everybody that, according to these people that thought the AFC was going to be so crazy, that should have at least won 8 games. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. That's about 12 teams in the AFC that are in the playoff picture. That's not happening. Injuries happen. Teams are different. Players underperform. Players regress. Players improve. That's the way it goes. And I knew the AFC was going to not be as good as what people thought. And now the AFC's at a state where it's pretty open. Honestly, it's pretty open. So, Jared Devil, does Terrell Austin Stair go? He's got to go. He's got to go. I hope he goes. He's awful. He's awful. I never liked the hire. Hopefully
You
he goes.
know, I actually don't think he's going to end up going, man.
I hope so, man.
Yeah, I know they were looking at him from, I think it was Syracuse. Did Syracuse hire somebody else, or is that job still open?
I didn't see anything on that.
So, you know, I was listening to, maybe it was 90 something point. I think it's 93.7 The Fan. I'm not from Pittsburgh, so I'm not.
Yeah, that's
familiar. Yeah, I think I was listening to one of their YouTube episodes where they said something to the effect that, you know, with Terrell Austin, the defense has not looked its greatest this year. However, they've kept them in games. They've won games, and they've done it with a completely depleted middle linebacker group and a safety group towards the end, especially. And so I think that there's the possibility, because of what he was able to do, or what he was able to do with what he had, that they might give him another go. You know, that's the only thing I think that keeps him here. You know, but I do hope that maybe perhaps, you know, college team does call him up, and you know, he finds greener pastures elsewhere.
Yeah. That
way the Steelers can bring in somebody else.
He's not cut out to lead a defense. Even when he's with the Bengals as their DC, it wasn't good. 24-32 teams still in the playoff hunt. Yeah, it's just not good play, Claude. It's not good play. And a lot of people coming the year thought all these AFC teams were just going to be a powerhouse, and that's why a lot of times the Steelers were overlooked, or a couple other teams, because you have these other teams. It wasn't going to work out that way. That's just it never works out that way. So I don't know. There was a comment here. They will have to spend a minimum of $12 million on Rudolph, with a promise for a real quarterback competition. Well, yeah, there needs to be one. There wasn't one. But to be honest with you, man, like I don't think there's a guarantee Mason's back next year. I really don't. He's going to test the market 100%. If there's interest elsewhere, and he knows he knows in his mind what he can offer the table. I don't think it's 100% guaranteed that he's going to be back.
I mean,
They'll
I
probably
think
remain
that
interested, but I don't think it like you're not going to sit there and say, oh yeah, he's going to be back next year. No, I'm not going to say that.
Heineke for Atlanta, I think he got 14 million.
Mhm.
So I think that's going to be the range, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as to keep him around. But yeah, the only other thing is if he has a true possibility at being the number one guy. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, if they were to tell him, you are going to start off being QB1, it's going to be your job to lose. I think that maybe that would entice him to stay, especially if it's something like a 1 or 2 year prove it deal, then he knows and he can kind of like Kirk Cousin this, you know what I'm saying? Where he ends up getting paid significant amount of money off of 2-year deals and franchise tags. If he's, decent enough, right? He has to earn it. But yeah, there's ways to keep him. And if they want to keep him, and I think that, the way he sounded after the Bengals game about how, fortunate he was that Tomlin and Omar Khan kept him and how grateful he was that they kept him around all this time and allowed him to develop and this and that. Like I said, the outside noise or the noise from outside of the stadium or the building, it's one thing, but I'm sure that the conversations inside those walls are completely different. And you never know. I mean, Mason could have a great relationship with Mike Tomlin and he want to play for him and doesn't care about what the fans did in the past. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. It's possible. That's why it's going to be a very, very, very fascinating offseason. Let me just put it that way. This is going to be a very big offseason in terms of talk, terms of rumors. You're going to hear it all. Honestly, you're going to hear it all. Do you think the Steelers might finally be getting hot at the right time? They definitely are, but it might be too little too late, Brian, to be honest with you. It really might be because they're in a situation they got to rely on a couple teams. They got to rely on a couple outcomes, possibly, maybe even just one outcome. They got to start with them winning, but they definitely are kind of getting hot at the right time, but it could be too little too late, man. It really could. Yeah, so
You brought up injuries earlier.
Mhm.
There sure has been a lot throughout the year. You think the NFL is going to do anything to try to prevent those in this next coming year or in the offseason for the following year?
They'll probably ban another tackle or something stupid. They'll
Do you
ban
think
another
they'll?
tackle and you can't play defense.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be any implement of maybe another bye week?
That'd be a good idea.
Mhm.
I'm for it.
Yeah. I also think they should, utilize a rule where if you're going to play Thursday night, that you have to be on your bye week before,
That's fair.
because
Yeah,
having a
that's fair.
team
I like that idea.
and both teams have to be on that. You
Yeah.
can adjust the schedule for that. You know what I mean? Now I think that,
Oh, of course you can.
where it comes down to it getting kind of iffy is when it's like the end of the year and they want to, change teams around, right? Well, I think there's more than one team on a bye, or I think there's like 4 teams on a bye week at one time. Just have,
Yeah.
those teams have the same bye week as well. And you can logistically do it. And just have one matchup as a backup and you only have those two. You know what I'm saying? But I think
Yeah.
that would be better for the health and safety of these players. I don't know if the NFL will do it, but I just think that would be
Well, it's
probably
going to
the
get to a
smartest
point. No,
decision.
Daniel, that's a great idea. I'd be all for it. I think it's going to get to a point too where the NFL does add another game to even those games out. And if they
Mhm.
do that, you got to add another bye week, 100%.
Mhm. I think that's
So
why they
that's a
didn't
matter of
add the
time.
bye week. I think that's why they didn't add the bye week when they extended to 17, because they were going to use that as a, I guess, as a reason to extend to 18.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're at 17, you might as well add another game to even it out. But yeah, teams will obviously want that extra bye week, which I think is fair. What Brian asked, what do you think about the Lions and Cowboys refs getting this game? Well, they're not apparently, from what I've read, they're not going to even get a playoff game because of how bad they fumbled that game itself. And that alone goes to show how poor officiating just continues to get in this league. And there's really lack of accountability. But in terms of them getting this game, geez, I don't know, man. It's something of where the refs could ultimately do something that kills kills the chances, that kills the game. I mean, we've seen that over the years with different teams. Like, what if this was a situation for the Lions last week where you have another team in the NFC North that's at 10 wins or 11 wins, and the Lions can't win their division because of that. Like, those are things like that play in. I mean, heck, we've seen Steeler games over the years, guys, where there's been poor officiating that have cost them. Other fans, other teams that's happened to them. So in this type of situation where this is a big game for the Steelers, this is a big weekend for them, this officiating crew's got to be top notch. And there's going to be a lot of more outrage if Brad Allen and his crew here do another screw up or anything like that ultimately hurts the outcome of this game. And that's just the reality of the state of officiating. It's awful. And everybody can agree to it. They lied. Brad Allen lied about what happened in that game. And it's honestly an embarrassment. It really is. The Lions were in a spot of where they could possibly have the 1 seed. Now they can't. So it's honestly an embarrassment to the league. The offense will have to carry the team in the playoffs by throwing up points consistently like the last 2 weeks. Yeah, they might. The playoffs are a different state, and that's the way the league is. So they might, especially depending. They'll probably have to play Buffalo or Miami or something like that. So they're going to put up points.
Maybe. I do think that, getting Minka back, DeMonte KZ back, is definitely going to bolster up the secondary. It'll allow Patrick Peterson to work a lot more in the slot and corner as well, and get Levi Wallace off the field again. And so, I think that those things are positive. Landon Roberts also returned to practice today, which is crazy. I thought he was going to be out for the year with his pec.
Yeah.
But, if he can come back and be some sort of, a fraction of what he was, then, I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, I'm confident them to win this game. And we'll talk about it as we get a little bit more toward, but yeah, them getting healthy on defense. That's why I think a lot of people and a lot of fans would like to see them get in. You see an offense that's a little rejuvenated now. You see a defense getting guys back, getting healthier. It would be interesting. It really would. It would be interesting. Seahawks game 2. That's why addressing Pickett when cleared and relying on Mitch if Mason got hurt makes no sense. Snap excuse. Yeah, there's a lot of factors into that too.
You think Pickett lied?
I don't think so. I think that it's hard for me to think that he would lie in the sense of what happened and the Steelers would really kind of ultimately tolerate it. I don't think that's the case at all. And Mark Madden's the last person I would honestly believe anything that comes out of that guy's mouth. Other than a cheeseburger, I wouldn't believe anything.
Yeah, but there's been other people that have said
Mark
that
Madden, dude. Mark Madden hates Pittsburgh, dude. He hates Pittsburgh.
No, I understand that.
I can't stand him.
He seems to like Mason Rudolph. He gives him a lot of praise over Pickett.
That's good. At least he's giving him compliments.
Yeah. I think he's doing it at the expense of Steelers and Pickett fans. But he's not the only one that reported. Al Saunders of Steelers Now also reported that there was some pushback by Kenny Pickett. There's been a few other, sports media guys that are pundits that have come forward and said that, they are true. Now, I think that Pickett didn't lie. If you listen to what he said that if he was going to play, he was going to be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, he wasn't going to dress. I mean, that's literally what he said.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
But it could have been a story that was way overblown by those sources. Like it could have been like it could have been something where Pickett expected to play, and they had a discussion. We're like, okay, we're just gonna keep you here. Like it wasn't like, oh, Kenny, like, coach, I'm not backing Mason up. I'm gonna sit. Like, no way it was like that. There's no way.
No, I
So
think it could have been more like a situation where he's like, I don't want to lose my job to an injury type of situation, and an argument, and a protest to that, not necessarily a protest to Mason himself. You know what I mean? Now he said that at no point was he asked, or did he turn down being the second stringer. That wasn't what was asked. The question was, about him dressing.
yeah.
Right now,
Right.
there's been some folks that say that had he dressed, he would have had to have taken a shot and gone through all this process that he didn't want to go through, basically,
Mhm.
to be the emergency guy for his ankle. And to that extent, I do kind of understand, but I would think that you'd probably rather have the guy dress, and if something happens, if Mason goes down and Mitch goes in, take Kenny to the back, give him the shot, let him come back out. There's more of a likelihood, him coming in if Mason goes down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And this whole rep crap and speculating that Coach T was talking about, that makes it more suspicious to me, because how many reps does Mason Rudolph have with the offense?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So he's
Mhm.
the practice squad guy.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett has had reps as the first string quarterback the entire season up until the point of his injury. You can't tell me that he has to, to be the emergency guy, he has to take reps. I don't see it. I think that there's more to it based on that alone. The excuses or the explanations seem kind of, like they're hiding something. What do you think?
There was definitely something like, and the thing that it was a story that was that there was definitely something. If there was literally nothing, like it never would have been anything that was talked about. There was definitely something, kind of like what Steelers Freak said, like he's not going to go there in the sense of saying Pickett's lying, but something's not right. Like that, there was definitely something. Maybe there was a little pushback there, or a little hesitancy on Kenny's part, and maybe the way he was going to look, or um, feeling like it was his kind of team, and he was expected to be a starter. Who knows? But I think it was just a really overblown story, way out of hand, that sources could have mixed up, and especially a guy like Mark Madden, that's definitely something he would do. 100%. He would
But
definitely blow a story way out of the water.
who would let it out,
Well, it had
and
to be
why?
somebody in there. Maybe there was an agenda against Pickett. Maybe there was um, something in the sense of, I don't know. Maybe they had something there to feed their own
You
story.
know who I think let it out?
And
I wouldn't be surprised if it was Coach T. And here's why. There's been a lot of things that these
he would
players have
snitch.
done throughout this year. There's been a lot of things done by by these players throughout this year. Like, for instance, the non-effort play by Deontay Johnson on the fumble. What did
Mhm,
Tomlin say? He's like, I'm gonna let him answer to those questions.
mhm,
He's gonna be the one to answer those questions. When it came to George Pickens and some of the things that he's done, Coach Tomlin put him in front of the media to answer for those things. If this did occur, maybe Tomlin's like, all right, I'm going to make you answer for what you're doing, so you can see your behavior is going to be appreciated by the fans. I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of thing. Maybe it's not. I was just thinking that, like, he did put his other players on the spot to make them go
mhm.
out there.
Right,
And exactly, he said the same thing. He said, I'll let Pickett, answer the questions while he was not dressed.
right.
I don't know, man.
Maybe the thing with Tomlin though, Tomlin's just been such a big backer of his. Like Tomlin, when Kenny was starting, like Tomlin wouldn't say anything negative about him. He wouldn't be straight up forward about what everybody's thinking when it comes to Pickett's play. Like he would, and I know that coaches will do that for a quarterback, but in terms of, like, you would have people asking him about just why, like, his fourth quarter play is the way it is, and you look at the other three quarters, et cetera, et cetera. Tomlin's um, kind of been taking his back. So in the sense that if that would be the case, that he would kind of leak that a little bit or give a comment to somebody within house and it got out or something like that. I don't know. Like it doesn't really. I don't know why he would kind of go back and forth on that with the way that he's treated Kenny all year long.
Well, maybe
It
because it
just seems
didn't
to
work
do that.
earlier. He handled him a certain way. He's handled a lot of players a certain way. Going back to Antonio Brown, and maybe he's just tired of doing it a certain way where he's kind of babysitting these people. Right? They're supposed to be grown men. They can answer for their actions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it's no effort, whether it's what you do on social media, or what you might say or ask of if you're not wanting to dress or not dress because you're upset and you're throwing a tantrum or whatever the case may be. I mean, it could easily have been he didn't want to get the shot in the ankle. I just don't understand why he didn't want to say that. Like, hey, in order for me to dress, I would have had to get this very painful shot into my ankle, and the likelihood of me going out there was very slim. So the trainers and the coaching staff thought it would be best, for me not to go through that and swell up my ankle anymore. And I undressed, something of that nature. Would have been very easy to say, but
well, I don't think we'll ever get an answer on it. I don't think we'll ever know. I think it'll be something that's honestly swept under the rug the way it is now, and we'll never get a full answer on it. But when Mark Madden's reporting it, dude, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Same thing with his TJ Watt report last year, the year before. Awful, absolutely awful. Mark Madden's not a reporter. Mark Madden is somebody who's been a part of a brief stint in WCW wrestling where he was absolutely canned and garbage in the late 90s. He's somebody who he likes to stir controversy. Of course, that's just stick, man. That's just stick. He wants people to talk. He wants to be negative. He wants to get the clicks. I don't take anything that he says to heart, not one bit. And if he's going to come out and be the main focal point of breaking this story with Kenny and he's not going to back down from it, like it's the same way with other stuff that he said. I don't believe a single word that guy says. There wasn't anybody like a Schefter or a Rappaport or anybody like that ever commented on anything about that. And same thing with other people, the Filipone, like, sure, they talked about it because it's Pittsburgh media, but they weren't ones to break that. They didn't have any inside knowledge on anything themselves. I just don't believe Mark Madden, man. I don't like him at all. I don't like him at all. Madden learned the art of BS for cash wrestling. Absolutely did.
Well, here's the thing. If you're trying to teach your quarterback a lesson or a young player a lesson, wouldn't you rather just kind of leak that to local media or to somebody locally so that way it's not picked up by the Scheffners and the Ian Rappaports and not spread across the entire league?
But it was a story that was gaining traction, and that's something that guys like that do pick up on, but maybe they didn't for a specific reason because there wasn't enough there.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that maybe perhaps it wasn't as straightforward as Kenny Pickett saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And it was something kind of like, hey, he didn't want to dress. He didn't want to be the third guy. And, a guy like Mark Madden is going to, dramatify it, make it dramatic and say all these other things and add to it and build it up.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that a story wasn't supposed to come out. Maybe it kind of went overboard with who it came out with or who, perhaps it got to other writers, but nobody wanted to write it. Right. That's what Mark Madden said. Right. And it got to him and he was the only one willing to say anything about it. And now there has been, guys that have come forward saying that, yeah, there was pushback is the term.
Yeah, it's not something where it's not something where nothing ever happened, but in terms of it, the current state of the story and the fact that outside of Madden, ultimately, there wasn't really any other interior knowledge from anybody else in the local media, ultimately, especially guys that are pretty involved in Pittsburgh sports media, is a little sketchy to me. Is a little suspect. And
well, Gary Dulac, he's the one that he didn't break it, but Gary Dulac kind of put it out there. He was the one that indicated like, hey, Kenny Pickett is cleared. There wasn't anything saying that he was medically cleared. He was questionable.
Yeah,
and then he was
not
considered
the fact
out.
that there's not something there. Like 100% there is, because it makes you question. Like, heck, I question why if Kenny's cleared. Kenny was cleared 2 weeks ago.
Or Jerry Dulac. I'm sorry, I called him Gary. Jerry Dulac.
He has me blocked on Twitter too. Because I called his ass out because he's not an insider. He's a
Yeah,
joke.
he's the one that said that, Kenny Pickett was cleared, and that he, although he was cleared, he's not going to be dressed. Kind of like putting it out
Right.
there for people to kind of put their own two and two together. Like, why
Sure.
isn't he the third team quarterback?
Yeah, it makes you question. Absolutely does.
So
Absolutely.
I do think that there's a possibility that story did go out to sports writers as early as before the game was started, because Jerry Dulac said that before the game. That wasn't something that occurred after the game or during the game. That was right before the game, right? Now,
Yeah.
it could have been his observations, obviously, but he was the only one that noticed that. Maybe perhaps somebody kind of pointed, in that direction, like, hey, he's healthy, but he's not the third team quarterback.
Right.
I think you should ask why.
Yeah. Well, I think just really at the end of the day, we're never going to fully know everything that happened. It's definitely possible it was a little overblown, a little over dramatic. Heck, I mean, it's possible maybe it was true to what it was. I mean, we'll never know. But if it's coming out of Mark Madden's mouth, how I leave it is I just don't listen to that guy. I have him blocked for a reason. He's awful in this city. I wish he was not even a part of this city. He is a terrible person. He hates Pittsburgh. He hates Pittsburgh sports unless the Penguins are the greatest team out there. And he doesn't. There's a reason why he's negative. There's a reason why, because he wants that controversy. He wants those clicks and stuff. So he has his own little cult following, and that's about it. So, but yeah, outside of that story, Kenny is going to be quarterback 2 going into this week. Daniel, how do you feel about Kenny's future as a starter here? How do you feel about his future here in general? I know a lot of people have been back and forth on Twitter. I've seen it from people I follow thinking that Kenny is going to, or just thinking that they think that Kenny, is going to likely be the starter, or that Kenny's just going to be here, or people saying that Kenny's done here. It's just something where it's a topic of conversation because the quarterback room is going to be a topic of conversation next season, a matter of fact. And I did a live stream, and you had people commenting on my stream that it was just a clickbait video. How's it a clickbait video when it's a question and I'm questioning other people in my chat on their opinion on the matter? Give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable question. It's a question that is going to be going on this offseason on their quarterback room, what they're going to do, Kenny's next opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. Daniel, what do you think? How does your, not what you think they'll do, but how do you feel? How do you feel about Kenny's future here?
And I would hope that it's short, to be honest with you. Not just for the Steelers' sake, but for Kenny's sake. If you go look at the games that he's done well. I mean, he did well against Cincinnati. I don't remember if that game had a horrible weather or anything like that. But outside of that game, the ones that he did well were in a dome or south. And so, I do think that there is some limitations when it comes to his arm strength. And I think that, the North the weather's not going to change. It's not going to change for him. It is what it is. And there's going to be a lot of, weather that's going to be a factor. Well, that being said, I think that the Steelers have seen, what Mason Rudolph can do. And I don't know how much, trust or value or hope they have in him. It seems like they got a lot. They went for it on 4th down in the first drive against Seattle, being very aggressive. At the end of the game, he threw for it, with less than 2 minutes. When everybody thought they were going to run, he threw it to George Pickens, and he goes and gets a first down, puts them in position that if, Seattle stops them, that they can kick a field goal and go up by 2 scores. And there's really nothing that Seattle can do. So, I just think that Kenny Pickett has had his opportunities. And I think that the Steelers would be foolish to not look elsewhere for something better. I mean, will he get another opportunity? I don't know. I mean, did Mason get one after 2019?
Right.
He only had, at that point, like 7 games started?
Probably around there.
Yeah, because he had he was at 10 coming into this year. And I know that one was the Lions, and one was the the Browns.
Uh-huh.
So I'm assuming at 8, he had 8 starts, that 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
he get an
It's
opportunity after that?
no, not for another 4 years.
Exactly. So, and then when he thought he was going to get an opportunity, the Steelers go get Pickett and Trubisky, and he's
Right.
not given a real shot. So,
Right.
you know, Mason had it rough. He's got hit in the head. He was benched for Duck. You know what I mean? A practice squad guy.
I still can't believe Duck was our quarterback.
I can't believe he was the quarterback. I
Dude,
bet you there's
it's just
probably
hilarious.
times
Amazing.
where he wakes up and he's like, man, I can't believe my life has gone where it's gone. Yeah, he won a primetime game with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's I think engaged to Lainey, the country singer.
Yeah.
And
Wilson.
yeah, and I think he makes duck calls,
Yeah.
making some decent money. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
he seems like just the average guy where everything just went right for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
But
Yeah, it's crazy even just thinking about that he was our quarterback.
so yeah, I mean that's who Rudolph got benched for. He got booed. He didn't come out with all this crap like, hey, I'm supposed to be the starter. I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to be that. Or, to me, I just think that he handled his entire, situation, every single bad one that he's had,
Yeah.
To this point, better than what Kenny seems to be handling his.
Yeah.
And it's concerning because
Yeah.
at that
No, it is,
time,
Daniel.
I think Mason Rudolph was 23 and how old is Kenny right now? 25. So,
yeah.
If the maturity is not there yet, that's another question mark. When is that going to get there?
Yeah. It's something that really needs to be considered. And the people out there that just think Kenny's going to come in next year and start, I mean, you couldn't be any more wrong. And Omar Khan did not draft Kenny Pickett.
I think they're going to give Kenny the opportunity to compete for the starting job. I don't think they're going to give him the opportunity to have the job and it be his job to lose. I think that that's going to be given to somebody else. I think that unless there's a draft, right?
Right.
If there's a if Mason Rudolph goes somewhere else in free agency, and the Steelers really don't find anybody, and end up still with like Trubisky. I think if Trubisky's still on the team, the Steelers drafted a guy. You know what I'm saying? The Steelers drafted a guy probably in the top 2 rounds. If Trubisky's on the team, they're drafting a guy in the top 2 rounds. And I think they're going to, at that point, it'll probably be Kenny Pickett's job to lose. But I tell you what, the first time he gets 3 and out, or 2 3 and outs in consecutive fashion, everybody's going to be chanting the guy that they drafted behind him.
Right.
If Mason ends up staying, and let's just say he gets the Steelers to the playoffs, and he continues to do well, even in a losing fashion, let's just say they win one playoff game or they don't win a playoff game, but the offense looks good, the defense, the middle linebackers, that situation is what it is. The opposition just takes advantage of it over and over, and they just, they end up losing. But Rudolph looks good. I think you should give him the opportunity to be the guy, and it'd be his job to lose going into 2024. But I think that's the way it has to go.
Okay, fair enough. I think everybody's going to have a different opinion when it comes to the Steelers quarterback room. You're going to hear people that are kind of like Daniel's side. You're going to hear people out there that are really just going to say whatever they think. And what we're not really going to know till we start to get a feel for things come probably March or so. But it's fascinating, man. It really is. And I feel like where I'm at with the Steelers quarterback room going forward is I just want to see a different direction there. And it's not saying that Kenny's career's over or anything like that. It's definitely not saying that. And I've supported Kenny just like I would support anybody that's our quarterback and want them to do well. But to me, I've just feel like I've seen kind of really what I need to see ultimately. I know that there was something there, Matt Canada's first game, not being there and Kenny doing well. But I think the things that are there in terms of fundamentally, in terms of mechanics for him, I just don't think there's much special there, if that makes sense. And it's hard to find quarterbacks. I understand that. And it's hard to really find a quarterback that's special in a lot of different areas. But even just an area there that you get impressed by, stuff like that, I just don't see it, man. I don't. And it's not to say that Kenny shouldn't be here next year. Not saying that. He'll be here. He'll be on the roster. He'll probably get a chance to try to compete there. But I personally would just like to see a different direction. That's just me. I think that there's talent here to do something with. I think there's talent here to win with. They obviously got to do the right things with their coaching staff. But I just personally want to see a different direction. And I can honestly make a video where I dissect each and every reason as to why that. I think that they need to evaluate all their options through the draft wise, free agency wise, trade wise. I think they need to evaluate every option.
How far does Mason Rudolph have to go before you think the Steelers are like, all right, we need to keep this guy?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, what Mason's done these last two games, in terms of what we've seen from quarterback play, probably since maybe 2020 when Big Ben came back, because he was decent that year he came back. He was decent. But it was something, these last two games with Mason, it's just been refreshing because we haven't really had decent average quarterback play, right? I think in the sense for them to say, okay, given that, what you said, it would maybe take him playing well and winning a playoff game, maybe.
So get into the divisional round?
Yeah, get in the divisional round and he plays well. I think that's something that could be a kind of really be that main reason. I think even if Mason can win a Super Bowl and Steelers fans will still hate, yeah, you probably still have people out there that would.
They'll say Kenny Pickett could have done it. Yeah. I've been seeing that all over the place. The defenders are out like crazy.
It really is. It's honestly kind of gross on Twitter, to be honest with you. But I even think that the Steelers right now, and however they finish this season off, I think they will have an interest in bringing him back. It's just a matter of how they're going to view him. It's just a matter of, are they going to view him as somebody that they want it to be, okay, it's your job to lose? Is it, okay, we want you as a quarterback too? Possibly we're going to let you compete as well for one. Like, it just depends, man. It really just depends. Depends on what the market's looking like too. Like, there could be another team that views him a little more highly than the Steelers do. And he's like, okay, that's an even better opportunity. So credit to Mason. He's earned, like, what he's done shows that he belongs in this league. And what he's done is he's going to get another paycheck somewhere. But yeah, man, I'm just at that spot. I just want them to explore all their options. I really do. I really do. And there's some guys in the draft I like too. I'm open to that. I'm open to them drafting quarterback in the first round if that's there. I'm open to them making a move somewhere if they do that. I'm open if they're just going to have a competition between Rudolph, Kenny, and maybe a mid-round pick or something like that if they decide to go that direction. But that's probably more on the bottom tier of what I like to see them do. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. There's other people out there that have a different opinion or would like to see them do this and that, but that's just my opinion. I've seen enough of Kenny, to be honest with you. I think that he can still have a career in this league. But it might even be better off somewhere else, because as much as I thought him getting drafted here was the best situation for him, it's honestly kind of been the worst situation for him at the same time. But that's just my opinion, though. That's just me. That's just how I feel. Regardless who's starting for us, I will always support and want them to do well, whether that's Kenny, Mason, if that's a rookie quarterback, if that's somebody we would trade for or acquire in free agency, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to want them to do well. I just want them to explore every option and make the right decision. That's what I want to see them do. So,
yeah, no, I hear you. For me, I think it would have to be more than just one playoff win, man. I think if he gets two,
that's fair.
If he gets two, I think then at that point the Steelers' hands are tied. They're going to have to do something to keep him, and and he's going to earn himself a lot of money the further he goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he ends up getting 2 wins and he plays well, and even in that third game plays well, you're looking at 6-game sample size. And if
Sure.
it's that good during those 6 games, and against top tier teams, I mean, if he goes out there, they beat the Ravens. I get that they're going to be starting some people, but they're first in the AFC. Let's say they get in, they beat Miami, who would, the Steelers are probably going to be the 7th seed, so they're going to go up against the 2nd seed. So if they beat whoever that is, then they got to go to the 1st seed. If they beat that team, which is going to be the Ravens,
how can you not?
That's some top tier teams. You know what I'm saying? So,
how can you not?
and yeah, you're going to have to. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be able to do that. I don't know if he is or isn't. The
Right.
Seattle Seahawks defense and the Cincinnati defense, they're not the best.
Right.
But
it's still impressive though, Daniel, to me what he's done.
Right.
Like I think his improvement, you can see it from the last time he started a game to these last 2, from his footwork to his accuracy, to his decision making in the pocket, stepping up in the pocket. He's not the same quarterback he was. And
right. No,
dude, I was
I
so
agree.
impressed, man, by that throw to Pickens down, like when just flat-footed, pressure was right there in the face. Honestly, let's be honest. If that's Kenny, he's bailing out of that. Let's be real. Like
dude, Kenny can't make that throw.
He's not even seeing him. No, he's not gonna make that throw. That was honestly just true arm talent on Mason Rudolph's part, true arm strength on his part. That was very impressive. But I will say, like, I'm not gonna sit here and say what Mason Rudolph is and what he's not right now. But I will be honest. He has been a different quarterback than what we've been accustomed to. He's gotten better in a lot of different areas. You can just already see those simple things, and that's just truth. That's just truth. You can go look at the film. You can go look at Daniel's video of him breaking down play. That's just truth, guys. It's just truth. So you got to give credit where it's due.
Yeah, there was a lot of comments. So I broke down. If you guys haven't seen it, I broke down Kenny Pickett's play against Seattle. It came out a little bit earlier today, and in the comment section, you'll see a lot of comparisons to Big Ben. It's crazy, but yeah, there are some throws he can do that that Pickett can't, and yeah, I'd like to see more than a 2-game sample size
for sure. I said that to my friend. I said that I wish, just like you, Dan, not to cut you off. I wish there was a little more time.
Yeah. I think that if he would have gotten the nod over Mitch, the Steelers would be in the playoffs. They'd probably be playing, maybe for that 1st seed. Let's see. They would won at least 2 games. No, maybe not. I think they're still in the situation they're at now, but probably like the 5th seed. And, and in already. But yeah, I want to see a little bit more than 2-game sample size, but in those 2 games, yeah, man, he's looked very impressive. I just want to see it. I just want to see it a couple of more times. Not even one more time, just maybe 2 more times. If he can do it in 4 games, back to back to back, I mean, once is chance, twice is coincidence. 3 is a pattern. So let's start that pattern off this week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Steeler Freak's a good point too. Mason's 2-game above average play is just that. Says a lot about the Steelers quarterback play for the last 3 years. And yeah, that's what I mentioned with we haven't us Steeler fans have not really had very good quarterback play for 3-4 years now. And it's refreshing and feels good. And that could be also a reason why too there's a lot of hype around him. Got to give him credit for what he's done, especially not being able to not starting a game in 2 years. Got to give him credit for different areas of his game he has gotten better at. But yeah, it's not like that he's it's not like that he is sounds good, Daniel. Sounds good. We'll wrap up. It's not like that he's coming in and playing like a MVP or anything like that, or doing all this crazy stuff, but he's getting the job done. He's being pretty efficient. I'll put it that way. So he's got this was his opportunity, probably his last opportunity in this league, possibly, and he's just extended it. So we'll see what he does. We will see what he does. Real quick, Daniel, and we're going to go in our predictions here. Frosty Bears KPA's not a franchise QB. Neither is Rudolph. The hype for Rudolph after 2 games is a little too much. I wish him well, but he will be elsewhere next season, as will as Mitch. It's possible, Frosty, he is elsewhere. He's probably not a franchise quarterback, but if he can be a quality quarterback there's a lot of quarterback needy teams. There's been a lot of quarterbacks that have been a lot of backup quarterback play this year. And if a team finds a lot of value in that, he could find himself elsewhere next year as well. But yeah,
you know
he's
what?
probably not, but yeah, good.
My favorite throw from Mason Rudolph, it wasn't that one where, he's off balance, he throws to Pickett, and Pickett makes a diving spectacular catch. It's the other one to Pickens on the sideline earlier in the game. And the reason being is, Frosty brings it up about the tape. Last week, Mason Rudolph was throwing a lot of out routes, 10, 8 out routes, and he was very decisive with it against the Bengals. He dropped back, boom, it was gone. Seattle Seahawks saw that. They ended up showing him man coverage, dropped in the zone, anticipating that he was going to do the out route. And he goes back and he's about to throw, and then he stutters and then throws it to Pickens over the top there. And that's when he kind of caught it. It was a little bit underthrown. And then they tackled. That's the one where he fumbled out of bounds.
Right.
And
I know exactly what you mean.
The reason why I like that play is because based on what what Mason Rudolph read pre-snap, he was going to go there to I think it was Deontay Johnson. But after, immediately once the ball was snapped, he was able to read what the defense was doing and find the open spot in the open weak spot that the defense had. That's the stuff that I'm not trying to compare him, but that's the stuff that killed the Steelers when they would play Tom Brady. They would stop something here, and there was always some kind of weak back area, and he'd always find it. You know what I mean? It wasn't ever that he was, killing the Steelers with these tight window throws. He was always able to find the one guy that was open in the defense.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I saw in that moment. If it was Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky, they would have stayed on Deontay Johnson based on their pre-snap read. They wouldn't have gone on to the other guy, and they wouldn't have had the arm talent, even if they did, to get the ball there, in time, because it's a late throw. You were looking at the first read first, and then you have to go to the second read. Mm-hmm. It's not one of those where it's on your back foot and go. It's a little bit different. And so now you got to throw the ball a little bit harder, a little bit further. And he's able to do that. And so, I don't know. I think that he's got some potential, as far as a quarterback in the pocket. Mm-hmm. I think that if this was, 2000, 2005, 2010, maybe Mason's the a really good quarterback, because that's when the statue type quarterbacks were thriving. Right. But I think he'd be all right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he can, and that's why he's definitely going to get something, whether that's here or somewhere else. You got to just give him credit in the sense of just putting his head down, working harder. He's definitely not the same quarterback. You can already see different aspects that he's done these 2 games that he before wouldn't have done. And you got to give him credit. And then you just kind of let his situation play out, and what happens there happens. But he's shown good things in the sense of that I think that he does belong in the league. What that is, don't know. That's something I think that has to be seen more on his end, whether that's here or somewhere else. But these 2 games, and this is another big game for him, it's gonna say something for his offseason. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. I'm with you, Frosty. I'd like to just see the Steelers do some different things in their quarterback room this offseason and do something in a different direction. But I've been impressed with Mason with some different things he's done. And I'm not going to sit and say that I think that Mason needs to be the starter here next year. I'm not going to sit here and say that Mason's just a backup in the league and stuff like that. I don't think there's enough there. And even with tape wise, there's not really enough there either. So who knows? That's why I wish there was more time. I wish there was more time this season to kind of evaluate that and let him kind of roll. But I don't know. Hey, they could win Saturday and they could get a playoff shot. I really don't know. It's going to be a fascinating offseason. So I don't know. But guys, Daniel and I, we're going to predict this game real quick. We're going to predict this game against the Ravens. We're going to predict, is this the final game the Steelers will have this year until next year? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section, guys. Is this going to be the Steelers' last game? Give us your predictions, your game scores on this game, and what you think will happen come Sunday. The Steelers will learn Sunday their playoff fate, because the Steelers could lose this game and still get in the playoffs, but they would need about 3 things to happen. They would need Denver to win, Tennessee to beat Jacksonville, and Texans or Colts to not end in a tie. But their best situation is to win Saturday, and you hope either the Titans beat the Jags or you hope Miami beats Buffalo. So we will see. We will see what happens. But Daniel, you can start.
Yeah, I think that I'm not going to be superstitious. Last week I said I was going to pick the opposite team because they won.
Right.
And you've done it again. It happened, and they won again. They won again. But I get it. But I don't like saying the other team's going to win, especially when it's the Ravens, and when I really don't believe that they are. I think the Steelers are going to end up winning this game. The backups for the Baltimore Ravens are in. The Steelers are in playoff mode. They have to go in there. Their backs against the wall. They've put themselves in a position that they're in right now. A couple of things that I've heard over the past couple of weeks as Mason Rudolph was a starter was that I think it was James Daniels or even Mason Cole who said that because I think the question was asked to them, does the team elevate Mason Rudolph? And he said, no, Mason Rudolph leads the team. He's a leader.
Right.
That's something that the Steelers hadn't had. The bunch of young players that haven't been on the team for a while. Ramon Foster will say that he is a very energetic dude in the huddle. He'll yell at you. He'll get in your face. And if he's doing that to these guys, maybe he is getting them in gear. And if he's leading this team in that manner, I think he deserves more opportunity. But I think they're going to end up winning this game. I don't know if he's going to get 30 points. I can say I think that it's probably going to be somewhere around 24-13. It's not going to be as, one of those cardiac type of games, in my opinion. I think the Steelers will take care of business. And as far as them getting in, I think there's a pretty good chance that one of those things happens, that one of those teams lose. I'm hoping so. I'm a little bit nervous because of the health of Miami, and, Tennessee hasn't played well, throughout the year. So I don't know. I don't even
Trevor
know
Lawrence might be out, by the way.
But isn't Will Levis also out?
Not sure. I know he got hurt. I don't know his injury.
But I guess that I think I would trust. I don't know who really is Jacksonville's backup. Tannehill is the Titans'
CJ
backup.
Beathard. CJ Beathard.
So we'll see. I think they had some issues too, right? Didn't Allen, their linebacker, go down with an injury too?
I didn't see that. Don't know.
Wrong.
Can't answer that on Josh Allen. So you're picking Steelers to win. Do the Steelers make the playoffs, Daniel?
I'm gonna say yeah. I think they're gonna get in.
They get in. Okay.
Hey, dude, Josh Allen is also injured too with a shoulder and a neck.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's still hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Crazy things have happened. I remember the season when Big Ben's last year, they needed the Chargers and Raiders game to not end in a tie. God, that game was so rigged. I don't care what anybody says. The NFL wanted that to happen. Did not end in a tie. But that was crazy. And there was another one too, where I think the Steelers, what was it? It was, wasn't it like the Colts losing to the Jags or something like that? Wasn't that the same year? I think they needed the Colts to lose to the Jags, and the Colts lost. That was when Wentz was their quarterback. And then they needed the Chargers. That's what it was. It was 2021. That was the same year. And then that did not end in a tie, and they got in the playoffs. So this is kind of a similar situation a little bit. Real quick, going to go through the chat's predictions. I will say mine, and we will call it so Daniel can get going here. Let's see here. Where does it start? Afton says 37-13 Ravens without Lamar Jackson. That is crazy. If that happens, Afton, I will Venmo you $100. That is, if that would happen, that's just an absolute embarrassment. That is an absolute embarrassment. Letting Tyler Huntley do that to you. 31-17 Steelers. Steeler Freak says they score 30 again.
Bring on the drama. Dude,
Yeah.
could you imagine the drama if Mason scores
Ooh.
like in 4
Yeah.
TDs? There's another shot of Pickett, and he's on the sideline all pissed.
Right. I know they got no. We played back. We played better against Lamar than his backups. Well, yeah, like the Steelers are pretty vulnerable to backup players and losing games like that. I just think 37-13 is just a really crazy score. But hey, Afton, the Steelers could lose this game. 100% they could. They've lost games this year. We've already seen it. They've lost games in the past that they should win. Key games, important games. I mean, it's definitely possible. 2012 was the only year Tomlin did not take it to the last game of the season for playoff results. Yes, I remember that season. That was pretty wild. Claude Bishop says 24-20 black and gold. And listen, there's a lot of things with Mike Tomlin that a lot of people have an opinion on, but it is crazy that he has not had a losing season, especially with the direction this season was going and still finding ways to win. And his players playing for him. I got to give him credit, man. It's what we all want more than just a non-losing season, but 17 years in a row, especially with the direction this year was headed, it's pretty crazy. I'm going to say the Steelers win this game as well. I'm going to say that they win 23-16. They find themselves with a win. I'm going to say that they go into Sunday night with the hope of the Dolphins beating the Bills, and their luck runs out. And we go into an off season. So I say the Steelers win, but they missed the playoffs. They honestly did it to themselves, losing those 3 games and 2 of those at home against 2 win teams and rolling with Mitch Trubisky. But there is optimism going into the offseason, and it's going to be a big offseason for them. Hopefully they play their cards right, and Omar Khan does what he needs to do. Brian says 24-22 Ravens, last second field goal. Boz calls no good. I'm just joking. Steelers win. Okay. We'll see, guys. We'll see. Daniel and I are going to end it there, guys. It could possibly be, this could be the last stream of the Steelers season, and it might not be. I don't know. So we will see come Sunday, after Sunday, if the Steelers get in or not. Daniel's saying yes. I say no. Most of you guys say yes. We'll see what happens. I would let with what they're doing offensively and getting some guys healthy. I think it'd be fun to see them in there, and then they can go into their off season and do what they got to do. But we'll see. Steelers Freak says Steelers luck will come through. We'll see. We'll see what happens, guys. So, but guys, we're gonna end it there. Thank you all so much for coming into the stream, for your thoughts in the chat, and we'll see what happens, guys. So Daniel and I will see you back next week. We'll see you back next week on Daniel's channel, guys. Check out his channel. Check out his breakdowns. Very good stuff there. So big game Saturday. It's just a big weekend overall for Steelers and their fans. So we will see what happens, guys. Take care. Thank you all for your support. See you next week.